My Nana's Stories. My name is Rosa, and my life on the islands has been anything but ordinary. I work to protect those that come to visit the island from themselves. In the shimmering daylight, tourists arrive with wide-eyed excitement, seeking adventure and escape from their mundane lives. They arrive unknowingly, unprepared, and, worst of all, disrespectful to the spirits that dwell here. Not all of them, of course, but the number drops farther and farther as time ebbs at the memories of our elders. You see, the island holds secrets. Secrets that only those who stop and listen will hear. My Nana, a wise woman with a secret or two of her own, filled my childhood with eerie tales of ancestral spirits, ancient giants, and mischievous beings. At first, I thought they were merely stories to keep me entertained, but as I grew older, I realized there was much more to them than meets the eye. I've seen them. When I was younger, of course, I would always go looking for them myself and would always come back empty-handed. Looking back, I'm thankful, but it didn't always work that way for others. I've witnessed the wrath of the island. Its reaction sends shivers down the spine. In the face of these unseen forces, tourists often explain away the happenings as mere coincidences. They laugh and dismiss the stories my Nana shared as mere superstition. But ignorance is a dangerous game on this island. They do not discriminate between intentional disrespect and blissful ignorance. It all started one night, as most things do. I wasn't exactly shoved into this role, but well, one evening during an especially dark and cloudy night, a group of unruly tourists gathered around a bonfire on the beach. I was packing up after hitting the water, and I could hear their laughter and loud music echoing through the night air. I could feel the beating of the speakers in the sand. Ignoring the warnings the locals had given them, they continued their revelry, oblivious to the threat watching them from the shadows. The Totomona, the ancestral ancients, seemed restless, their whispers growing louder and their presence more palpable. I felt every hair on my body stand, and a feeling deep within telling me to leave. As if warning me to. Nana had always told me that the Totomona were both benevolent and malevolent, depending on how they were treated. They appreciated offerings and respect, but despised disregard and desecration of sacred sites. And seeing as the whole island is a sacred site to some, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to stop this madness from occurring. I headed over towards them as the bonfire roared and the merrymaking reached its peak. I noticed a thick mist begin to crawl along the shore. It seemed to emerge from the depths of the ocean itself and poured out from the trees, carrying an eerie green glow that sent a chill down my spine. The Totomona were responding to the tourists, no longer content with being ignored. Panicked, I ran towards the tourists faster, attempting to get their attention and warn them of the danger they were unknowingly inviting. But my words were drowned out by their laughter and the music, the speakers still thumping in the sand. Not a single one of them even looked up at me. What was wrong with these people? It was then that I felt a strong gust of wind sweep through the area, extinguishing the bonfire in an instant. The laughter turned to confusion and fear as the mist enveloped the group, hiding them from sight. They all just seemed to disappear right in front of me. I tried to run towards them, but an incredible wind pushed me back, preventing me from getting any closer and pinning me to the ground. Every time I would get to my knees, the wind would blow and knock me back to my back. Message received. From the outskirts of the mist, I could hear whispers, both haunting and sorrowful. as if the spirits were mourning the action they were about to take part in. It was a palpable sadness. I felt like time had slowed down as I watched the tourists stumbling blindly through the mist, calling out to each other in fear and disorientation. Slowly, the mist began to recede, revealing the tourists now standing in a circle, huddled together. Their faces were filled with terror and awe, as they seemed to be darting around the mist at entities unseen by my eyes. They looked like owls searching for prey. The spirits were making their presence known, and the tourists were finally realizing the gravity of their actions. I watched in horror as the tourists began to apologize profusely, speaking words of remorse and promising to be more respectful. There was a long silence. Not a sound, not from the tourists' pleading mouths, not from the wind blowing in the trees, not from the ocean crashing along the shore. The silence was one of deep thought, as if the whole of life was weighing their plea. The Totomona must have accepted their apologies. As the mist dissipated completely, the tourists were left standing on the beach, shaken but unharmed. They of course went on to go home and retell the stories, I'm sure, but they didn't spread the right story. People still came just like them. I'd break up a bonfire almost every night. No, I'm not the fun police either. You know darn well when it's getting too late. All of you do. So don't give me that. That first night was a lucky call, but I guess you could say it's what lit the fire to continue. They wanted me to. The fact that I was spared the mist is proof. Only some of the stories don't end so well. Allow me to recount my unforgettable encounter with the Duindas. These mischievous beings are commonly regarded as harmless pranksters by the locals, but there's much more to them than meets the eye. Similar to the Totomona, if treated with respect, they prefer to remain unseen. However, a group of reckless teenagers failed to grasp this notion, so they had arrived unprepared. At the time, I was settling into my new role and getting accustomed to the occasional nuisances like litterbugs and loud-mouthed troublemakers. But one particular day, I faced perhaps the worst of them all. An arsonist with a sinister agenda and a crew. We'll call him John. His plan involved committing the so-called perfect crime during his family vacation. He manipulatively convinced his parents to bring his friends along under the pretense of documenting their adventures. However, the true intention was to film the act of burning the venerable old tree in the village, with everyone present as willing witnesses to his twisted deed. He boasted about how this act would be the beginning of something new, whatever that means. I overheard this disturbing plot while on duty and decided to keep a close watch on the group. However, as fate would have it, their vacation was a busy one, making it challenging for me to follow. Feeling like I had missed a significant opportunity to prevent a potential disaster, I headed to the location the boys had mentioned after work. Familiar with that stretch of land, I knew that if they were present, I would hear them. You always hear them before you see them. Makes it all the more funny when you walk up and no one is there, like, come on guys, I know you're hiding. As the sun gracefully dipped below the horizon, casting vibrant hues of orange and purple across the sky, Rosa found herself standing on the outskirts of a secluded village. Time had not forgotten this land, but the people had. In the distance, she spotted the group of teens gathered around a sacred tree, whose branches were adorned with colorful ribbons and offerings left by locals to honor the Duindas. Among the teens was John, still wearing that crappy grin and tugging on some of the ribbons. As Rosa approached, she noticed the Duindas darting among the shadows, their laughter like tinkling bells in the gentle breeze. They seemed to be drawn to the negative energy emanating from John, and Rosa felt a sense of unease. "John, you mustn't disturb this sacred tree. It is a place of great importance to the villagers and the do-inders who protect it," Rosa warned, her voice carrying the weight of authority. John scoffed, not even slighted that I knew his name, dismissing her words with a spiteful laugh. "Spirits and fairy tales. I've had enough of this nonsense. I do as I please." His friends joined in a chorus of laughter, their amusement fueled by an unseen threat. John, feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity, stumbled over to the nearby tree and rested his hand on it, causing an eerie stillness in the air. Almost whispering, he challenged, "Show me something then." John motioned to his friend, the one without the camera, who came over with a small cylinder filled with what later turned out to be gasoline. Concerned for their safety, I started running toward them, but my approach halted when I noticed the do-inders were present. The laughter ceased, no longer the bell-like twinkling, and they observed silently. Could John see them too? Could any of them? I wanted to question this, but I also feared they might suspect me of being involved if I got too close. Desperately, I yelled at John, "Stop it. You have no idea the danger you're in." But he only responded with an arrogant smirk, pouring the gasoline all over the tree's base. The do-inders began shaking their heads in a slow, rhythmic manner. A clacking and clicking produced a sound reminiscent of rain. This eerie noise filled me with anxiety and dread, but I knew I had to stay and bear witness. I would not see or hear what they didn't want me to. John finished dousing the tree and stepping back to deliver a frenzied speech into his friend's camera, intent on sending a message. Another friend handed him a box of matches, and in his haste and excitement, John dropped most of them. His nerves were palpable as he struck a match and taunted an unseen audience. I wondered why they couldn't hear the do-inders sounds. As John dropped the match onto the tree, igniting the gasoline, it unexpectedly went out. The do-inders burst into laughter, their bell-like chimes returning to life with full force, as if mocking the boy's foolish actions. The sound grew louder and louder, and I could tell that this time all three of the boys could hear it. They were on their hands and knees, covering their ears, trying to block out the torrent of laughter. As John stood up, the laughter slowly subsided. He pivoted in a wide circle, glaring at those stupid enough to laugh at his greatness, only to be met with smiles that showcased their delight in his awkward mess. They didn't bother to conceal their belief that he was powerless in this situation. This was meant to be his punishment, and for anyone else, leaving the village that night with a thrilling tale would have sufficed. But not for John. How could he tolerate such disrespect? Facing the tree again, he attempted to light another match, but just like before, it failed. Frustrated, he searched for an alternative to harming the tree, realizing there were no axes at hand, and he didn't carry a pocket knife. Then a realization struck him. The ribbons. These villagers use these ribbons to honor these things, and they seem to care about this stupid tree. He yelled to his friends, urging them to get up. He grabbed one of the ribbons and pulled hard. Suddenly, a shriek erupted from the do-inders, and it was evident that John heard it too. But he wasn't the only one. Unfamiliar sounds echoed from various parts of the island, things I had never heard before, things only my Nana would have heard from her Nana B. The eerie noise paralyzed John and his companions in their tracks. The camera guy was the first to break ranks, fleeing towards the trees. However, he didn't make it far before something happened to him. As he reached the circle of wailing do-indos, their cries seemed to reach an unbearable pitch before returning to normal. John and his friend exchanged a look, seizing the opportunity, and without even glancing back at their missing friend, they sprinted for the safety of the tree line. The do-indos slowly reappeared, observing their escape into the forest. They didn't pursue them at first. They wanted them to flee. The soothing sounds of rain, with gentle clicking and clacking, began to return, and the do-indos multiplied, moving towards the tree line in painfully slow pursuit of the boys. I rose from my position and cautiously approached the tree. One solitary do-indos sat at its base, fixated on the ribbon. I asked for permission to touch the ribbon, expressing my intention to help. The do-indos didn't even glance up. It shook its head, the sound resembling tiny raindrops on leaves. Carefully, I picked up the ribbon and reattached it to the limb where it belonged. I also cleaned up the boys' belongings. I could have chased after them and tried to uncover what had happened, but deep down I already knew the truth. And so do you. As with discovering a canister revealed to indeed be filled with gasoline, I learned of the tragic fate of John and his friend. Their lifeless bodies were found at the end of a deep cavern, approximately 2 miles away from the tree. It appeared they had frantically run through the dense canopy all night, wandering in circles until one stumbled, and the other blindly followed suit. The fate of the third boy remained uncertain. As for the official report, I couldn't risk revealing the truth, fearing confinement in a psychiatric facility. I am determined to help the island, and my credibility would be lost if labeled as unstable. I know what I witnessed, and if you visit our home, perhaps you'll see it too.